Live from WRAL News headquarters in Raleigh, your number one source for local news. WRAL News, coverage you can count on.
And we do have the potential for some severe storms tomorrow night and again on Wednesday. I'll show you the timeline and what you can expect.
Distressing discovery, words of encouragement and prayers for former President Joe Biden as he announces he has an aggressive form of prostate cancer.
A roundtable in Raleigh. Former Vice President Mike Pence discusses tariffs, tax reform, and economics. The vision he shared.
How about the bright skies across our area this afternoon? Glorious Monday here. Good afternoon to you. I'm Jeff Hogan.
And I'm Renee Chu. Thanks for joining us. Today looks great. Tomorrow we have an approaching front that will change our weather pattern. Meteorologist Elizabeth Gardner is on the WRAL weather patio with a look at when severe storms are in the forecast. Elizabeth.
If we see any of them on Tuesday, it's likely to be Tuesday night. When I say Tuesday night, I mean close to midnight, like very, very late. So this is not something you'll have to worry about during the day Tuesday. And then on Wednesday, we have another level 1 risk for severe storms. Level 1 just means that we have the potential for isolated severe weather, wind damage, hail, isolated tornadoes. That threat on Wednesday will be mainly during the afternoon, except we're starting to see a few changes in the pattern. So let's jump in and take a look at Tuesday. Starting right around lunchtime, notice there are just a couple of isolated showers that might pop up. None of that's going to be severe. And then we move it ahead, and we really don't have anything that develops except maybe up near the Virginia line closer to midnight. There's 1 a.m. And then this version of Futurecast shows this line coming through. So originally it looked like just some heavy rain, but the line is looking a little bit more robust. So it's possible, certainly, that we could have some severe storms in the morning on Wednesday. That's 7 a.m. So it's likely to be really early, but is likely to affect at least the early part of the morning commute. And then after that, we'll be watching for that chance of some redevelopment later on in the afternoon. Right now, it feels pretty good. It's getting hotter out here, but our humidity is nice and low. Today's going to feel a whole lot like yesterday did, looking at 80 degrees right now, but the dew point's at 53. So 80 degrees with a dew point of 53 is not so bad. It could feel a whole lot worse. We'll keep it in the mid 80s all the way up until around 7 or 8 o'clock this evening. We'll talk about what happens after Wednesday's front when our temperatures really drop coming up.
Happening now in the WRAL Live Center. Within the last 45 minutes, Governor Stein announcing his second Hurricane Helene relief budget proposal. Governor Stein is in western North Carolina, hardest hit by Hurricane Helene. More specifically, he's in Rutherford County at Carolina Domes that was destroyed by Hurricane Helene. He's asking for nearly $1 billion more in Hurricane Helene relief. The governor's $891 million request comes as state lawmakers in Raleigh are in the middle of negotiating a new budget. Now, the federal government typically handles most disaster recovery costs, but Stein says the federal government is spending too little and getting it to North Carolina too slowly.
You have an instance where revenues have declined at the same time expenses have increased. What we don't want is for local governments to be forced to lay off a percentage of their workforce that normally provide important services to the people because they don't have enough revenue. That's what these grants from the state to the local government can help. We just want local government to continue to operate effectively to serve their constituents' needs.
Well, this second budget proposal will focus on helping small businesses get back on their feet, assist residents in rebuilding their homes, and continue the work of removing tons of debris in damaged areas. The state has already spent $1.6 billion in Helene relief. Now, really and truly, today's common theme was just a reminder to let people know that Western North Carolina is open for business. Look for new reporting on this story on WRAL.com, WRAL News Plus, and of course in our news starting at 4.
More breaking news. A Morrisville man accused of killing his wife, then claiming it was a suicide, has pleaded guilty to murder. This morning, Michael Matthews pleaded guilty to second-degree murder for the April 2023 shooting. Prosecutors say Matthews shot his wife, then staged her death to appear as a suicide, even writing a suicide note. 33-year-old Nabirona Karmakar was found dead in the couple's home after he called 911 to report a suicide. A friend who spoke in court said she had recently asked for a divorce. Matthews was sentenced to a minimum of 13 years in prison.
Breaking news in the war in Ukraine. Shortly before this newscast, President Donald Trump called Vladimir Putin in an effort to reach a ceasefire deal. Prior to the phone call, a Kremlin spokesperson said ending the war would be painstaking. Following today's call with Putin, Mr. Trump is expected to call Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. Some consider these talks to be a test of his reputation as a deal maker after having claimed he would quickly settle the conflict once he was back in the White House.
Now to former President Biden's cancer diagnosis. His office says he is fighting an aggressive form of prostate cancer. NBC's Gabe Gutierrez reports the surprising health news coming just months after leaving office.
This morning, well wishes are streaming in for former President Biden after his personal office revealed the 82-year-old has an aggressive form of prostate cancer that has spread to his bones. The diagnosis came Friday after Biden had reported urinary symptoms, which led doctors to find a small nodule on his prostate.
Once the cancer has spread to the bones, it's no longer curable, but it's very treatable and very controllable.
President Trump posting that he and the First Lady are saddened to hear about Biden's diagnosis and wishing him a fast and successful recovery. Former President Obama and former Vice President Kamala Harris also sharing well wishes. Cancer has devastated the Biden family before. As vice president, he led a moonshot effort to find cures for the disease after his son Beau died from an aggressive form of brain cancer in 2015.
One of the most devastating words anyone can hear, and it's not hyperbole, is cancer.
In 1988, then Senator Biden battled 2 brain aneurysms that threatened to end his political career. His most recent White House medical exam at Walter Reed was in February of last year when a physician assessed he was fit for duty. But during his presidency, Biden faced mounting questions about his health, age, and mental fitness, which ultimately led him to drop his bid for re-election. This weekend, Axios published audio from Biden's 2023 interview with Robert Hur, the special counsel who investigated his handling of classified documents. At some points during the interview, Biden appeared to struggle to remember key dates and details.
Do you have any idea where this...
Federal investigators say the bombing of a fertility clinic in Palm Springs, California was an intentional act of terrorism. Authorities say Guy Barkas detonated an explosive outside a fertility clinic Saturday, killing himself. Law enforcement said Barkas appears to have had a belief that having children is morally wrong. Agents searched his home in a neighboring town and assured residents there is no ongoing threat. And there was that. News cameras were rolling right near the scene of where that explosion was, and that's what happened when a driver plowed through the barricades this morning. The driver was stopped by officers after going less than a block down that street. Moments later, the video shows the towing service driving away with the vehicle. No word yet on charges.
The WNBA is investigating reports of racial slurs directed towards Angel Reese during the Chicago Sky's loss to the Indiana Fever. With less than 5 minutes left in the third quarter, Angel Reese claimed an offensive rebound. As she was driving for the basket, Caitlin Clark made hard contact with Reese's right arm, knocking her to the ground. Clark's foul was upgraded from a personal to a flagrant one. The Fever released a statement saying they are aware of the allegations of inappropriate fan conduct during the game. The families of the victims of 2 deadly crashes, Boeing 737 MAX aircraft, plan to fight a new proposed deal between the Department of Justice and Boeing. The crashes, Lion Air in 2018 and Ethiopian Airlines in 2019, killed a total of 346 people. Boeing was accused of deceiving regulators about known flight control issues. Under the proposed deal, the aerospace giant would not be labeled a felon. That label could come with restrictions on defense contractor work.
More than half of Americans plan to spend less on travel, dining, or live entertainment this year due to rising costs. A new Bankrate survey finds nearly 40% plan to spend less on dining out. Roughly the same will cut back on concerts, theater, and sporting events, as well as their travel spending. About 30%, roughly a third of them, say that they are willing to go into debt to travel this year. And finally, 12% of Americans say they made changes to their vacation plans due to the Trump tariffs. So we are asking you today, how have tariffs impacted your travel and entertainment plans? You can share your voice right now by scanning the QR code on your screen or head to WRAL.com/yourvoice, and we will share the results before the end of this newscast.
Last week's storms brought a bunch of odd and rare clouds to North Carolina. Meteorologist Chris Michaels shows us what they were, how they formed, and how you can share what you saw in this week's Ask the Meteorologist.
The sky last week definitely putting on a show. Now, a shelf cloud like what was seen in Chapel Hill from Mark Waller, that's not exactly rare, but it is very interesting on the leading edge of these storms. You'll get warm, moist air that goes over a layer of rain-cooled air, and that's what forms that shelf or that leading edge. Now, these were spotted in Fuquay, these Kelvin-Helmholtz waves, and what you have is the air at the top of the cloud layer moving faster in the bottom, and it causes that crashing appearance. Then on Saturday in Willow Spring, Nick got an awesome shot of this roll cloud, which is similar to a shelf cloud. It's just detached from a storm. And then lastly, in Zebulon, gravity waves that were spotted over the weekend. The air rises, forms a cloud, then it sinks and forms clear sky. And that repetitive process gives you that up and down, almost feathery appearance to the sky that we saw in eastern Wake County over the course of the weekend. Then, of course, there were funnel clouds and the tornado that was in Edgecombe County last week. This was the Tarboro one that Eva Martin got a great shot of. And speaking of tornadoes, we're diving deeper into the recent trend for our eastern counties, seeing way more than folks to the west. Does North Carolina have a tornado alley? We break that down in a story you'll only see on WRAL at 6 p.m. today.
And tonight at 6 on WRAL News, North Carolina's Tornado Alley. We take a look at some of the same counties that keep getting hit by storm after storm. Just last week, 3 tornadoes touched down in the area, and you can find out what is fueling these storms. If there's a pattern, it's likely to continue. We're going to find all that out tonight at 6 p.m. Our own Tornado Alley.
Beautiful weather today, though. This is a live look at Carr Lake, where this morning, gorgeous sunrise. So we're off to a pretty start, and it's just going to be a fabulous day.
Very nice this noon, too, as we head out to Elizabeth Gardner on the WRAL weather patio. You got the right spot there.
I do, and I've got the right dress on, hanging out in the gardens, you know, flowery and cool. We take a look at what's going on. Things will change. Today's a really nice day. Like yesterday, that cold front is well to our south down in South Carolina, so we are on the more comfortable side of that front. Anytime you're on the north side of a cold front, you know, it's cooler. It's usually less humid. Sometimes it means it's cold in the wintertime, but this time of year, you want to be on the north side of that front if you can be. But that front will start to lift northward as we get into the day tomorrow. Eventually, it's likely to bring us a line of some showers and thunderstorms, which is shaping up maybe to be on Wednesday morning instead of the afternoon. We do have a level 1 severe threat. This is going to be for tomorrow. And then Wednesday's also a level 1 risk for severe storms, damaging wind, hail, isolated tornadoes are going to be our biggest threat. We'll walk the Futurecast again, you know, because you just can't get too much Futurecast, right? Tomorrow afternoon at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, there might be an isolated shower that pops up. I think will be fairly cloudy for tomorrow. We're really not going to see a whole lot of rain until we get much closer to, well, Wednesday morning, really. There's Wednesday at midnight. There might be some stronger storms up near the Virginia line. And we'll see what happens. You know, the Storm Prediction Center put us under that level 1 risk for tomorrow, and it's just looking less and less likely. Saturday, they dropped it. Maybe they'll drop it. We'll see how that goes. We'll let you know. Then Wednesday morning at around 4 or 5 o'clock, we start to see this line of showers coming through, and it's just looking a little more angry. So it's possible that we would have some severe storms very early, maybe between 4 and around 7 a.m. on Wednesday morning. This is Wednesday at around 8 or 9 o'clock, and then we'll see if we see some more redevelopment of it later in the afternoon. The gardens behind me looking beautiful. There's no one here if you want to come and check them out. Lots of things still blooming in the gardens. We do have some beautiful rhododendron behind me, lots of hydrangea. It is 80 degrees right now with a very comfortable dew point of 53. It is 79 in Cary and Holly Springs, 76 in Garner right now. So really feeling comfortable around town. Highs will climb into the mid 80s in Raleigh and Durham, and around 89 for Fayetteville. Tomorrow, of course, we have the first game of the next series versus Florida there at the Lenovo Center. If you're going to be tailgating tomorrow, it's going to be absolutely fine. I wouldn't expect to see any rain, but as the game ends, we might see a few isolated showers. Now, the dew points are really going to climb. We're pretty comfortable today. It may jump up Wednesday to steamy, but then it really drops pretty dramatically. Watch the temperature change too. The yellow is just above normal. Watch how much of the country drops down below normal as we get into Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. It's a huge chunk of the country. What does that look like for us? It looks like highs in the 70s. But of course, we do have that potential for rain late Tuesday night into Wednesday. Coming up, I'll show you how much we could see, and we'll talk in more detail about the holiday weekend coming our way.
Elizabeth, thanks. Scary scam. A caller says your parent is being held hostage and you have to pay. But it's not a scam. That's what happened to one local woman. What you need to look out for so you don't fall victim to a similar crime at 5.
Plus, 911 calls on hold. A mother says her call to 911 was put on hold while her child was having an allergic reaction. What's causing call delays and the work being done to prevent situations like this from happening again? That is tonight at 6. Still ahead this noon, stretching the truth. What a new survey revealed about the information applicants share on job applications.
Pricing issues. You might be paying too much without even knowing it. 5 on Your Side uncovers what's really happening at one of the country's biggest grocery chains.
Shoppers of one of the country's biggest grocery chains could be overpaying and not even realize it. A recent investigation says that the price that you see on the shelf isn't what you're charged at checkout in some cases. And 5 on Your Side's Keely Arthur breaks down what's behind the price discrepancies and which company is under the microscope for it.
The company in question is Kroger, and that's the parent company of Harris Teeter. Now, there are 150 Harris Teeters across 67 cities in North Carolina. And this investigation, get this, found shoppers on average are paying 20% more than they should be.
We found expired sales tags on more than 150 different grocery items that actually led to overcharges at the checkout counter. Everything from beef and salmon to coffee, juice, vegetables, even cough medicine and dog food.
So a lot of different products. Consumer Reports visited 26 Kroger-owned stores in 14 states and Washington, D.C. On average, shoppers were overcharged $1.70 per sales item, or 18.4% more. Kroger workers say that major staffing cuts and reduced hours have left them stretched way too thin, making it nearly impossible for them to keep up with all the changing price tags. Kroger has been testing digital price tags in some stores, and the company says it also corrects price mistakes with a policy called Make It Right that lets employees fix errors on the spot. In North Carolina, we actually have a state agency which monitors pricing accuracy and finds stores that don't resolve the issues. Tonight on WRAL News, I'll show you which stores in North Carolina have had the most recent violations and what you should do if the price at the checkout doesn't match the price on the tag. Keely Arthur, 5 on Your Side.
A new report says climate change should be considered a new core aspect of creditworthiness for prospective home buyers. A climate risk financial modeling firm looked at the ties between the growing risks from extreme weather and a possible spike in mortgage defaults in hard-hit areas. The analysis suggests that mortgage lenders could become more hesitant to provide policies or raise the cost of borrowing in certain risky areas with more exposure to climate-related hazards. About 47% of Gen Zers say they've lied about some information on their job applications. Those are people born between 1997 and 2012. According to the survey, 22% say they've lied about work experience. 28% lied about job responsibilities. Gen Z's percentages beat out other generations in lying on job applications. One career coach says younger applicants may lie because some have little experience and are trying to make a good impression and get their first big break.
Morrisville murder plea. More than 2 years after a SAS employee was found dead in her home, her husband pleaded guilty. You're going to hear what her friends said in court.
Flying on autopilot. A plane lands safely after flying for 10 minutes with no one at the controls. What the investigation revealed. First, here's a look at your winning North Carolina education lottery numbers from Sunday.
shot in 4K ultra high definition. Your number one source for local news. WRAL News. Coverage you can count on.
13 to 16 years in prison. That's what a Mooresville man will serve after pleading guilty to killing his wife today in Wake County. A judge accepted the plea deal for Michael Matthews. He was charged with the April 2023 murder of his wife, Nabaruna Karmakar. WRAL's Chelsea Donovan was in court today and joins us with the latest. Chelsea.
Yeah, so Renee, it seems like this motive for murder was divorce. Nabaruna had told her husband she wanted a divorce 4 days before she was found shot twice by a shotgun. And also prosecutors say that her suicide attempt was meant to be a murder, but that the defendant in this case staged that attempt. Now, Karmakar died from 2 gunshot wounds to the chest and the torso at the couple's home. That's on Seagrave Place in Morrisville, according to the state. Now, police said Matthews called 911. He told the 911 operator he wanted to report a double suicide before hanging up the phone. In court, prosecutors said police officers responded to that home and found Karmakar dead under her desk. According to prosecutors, the scene appeared staged with a gas can, bullet casings found next to the victim, as well as her arms wrapped around her pet's ashes who had recently passed away. Prosecutors said that this was a staged, failed attempt. She also had a suicide letter right by her side.
He didn't just end a life, he stole a future filled with memories that will now never happen. The ripple of this violence touches all of us every single day.
A lot of friends and family in court today. Karmakar graduated from NC State. She was employed by Sass and Carey doing research and development before her death. As far as Michael Matthews, he'll be held at Central Prison before he goes on to serve that time. The judge did order mental health and substance abuse counseling. Live in downtown Raleigh, Chelsea Donovan, WRAL News.
Happening now in the WRAL Live Center, Raleigh police making an arrest in a pharmacy armed robbery earlier today. This happened at the CVS at Landmark Drive, just off Lake Boone Trail. This is new video into a newsroom from the WRAL Breaking News Tracker. Officers arrested 18-year-old Zach St. Laurent, who made off with various prescription medications. Police say he is also charged in the robbery of another pharmacy, the Walgreens on Wake Forest Road. St. Laurent is accused of facing several charges, including robbery with a dangerous weapon. Raleigh police say this investigation is ongoing. Thank you.
Ken, thanks for that. More than 50 million people right now in the United States have osteoporosis, a condition that weakens bones and puts a person at risk for injury. According to neurosurgeons, once a person has a fracture related to osteoporosis, the second injury is 10 times higher. Preventing osteoporosis plays a big role in injuries because even with the advances of medications, it's hard to reverse that process.
With osteoporosis, the exercises that we need are what we call weight-bearing exercises. So while it's great to do exercises when you're on your back or sitting in a chair, they can build strength, but they're not going to be helping with bone health and bone strength.
Some ideas include gardening, going for a walk, or even walking in the pool.
At least a quarter of all children in the United States under the age of 18 have a parent struggling with an addiction. Data from a national survey on drug use and health revealed that 19 million children in the U.S. have at least one parent with a substance use disorder. Researchers say the main finding is significantly higher than previous estimates. Alcohol was the most common substance use disorder. The latest data from the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services shows 1 in 4 maternal deaths was caused by unintentional overdose. And now there's help. ECU Health in Greenville is home to the first clinic dedicated to providing specialized care for pregnant individuals facing substance use disorders. The Impact Clinic, which stands for Integrated Model of Perinatal Addiction Care and Treatment, is the only outpatient facility of its kind in eastern North Carolina. It will help patients navigate recovery while receiving medical and prenatal care.
Buckling your seatbelt. We know by statistics it can help save your life. Today, local law enforcement kicked off an annual campaign to make sure you're doing it. The governor's highway safety program, Memorial Day Click It or Ticket campaign, kicked off today and runs through June 1st. The annual statewide campaign promotes safe driving by buckling your seatbelt. So far this year, 158 unbuckled passengers or drivers have died in crashes.
In North Carolina, more than 10,000 children and teens are in the foster care system in need of a stable home. Because of the great need, Governor Josh Stein has proclaimed May as Foster Care Month. Victoria and Avery Tillman were both inspired through their family upbringings to embrace adoption. They are now raising 2 foster children. They've had a total of 5 placements in their home.
They want a sense of normalcy and they want to feel loved and cared for. You know, these kids, a lot of them that are in the foster care system, they have been dealt so many cards in their young lives that they didn't ask for, that they don't deserve to be dealt.
If you're considering becoming a foster parent, the Tillmans say the state offers plenty of support services. Children in foster care are assigned a social worker who can help answer parents' questions. The children come into care with Medicaid, so dental, vision, and health care are all covered by the state.
Former Vice President Mike Pence made a stop in Raleigh today, sharing his thoughts on the negative impacts of President Trump's tariffs and tax reforms. WRAL's Sean Gallagher was there as the former vice president, speaking contrary to the president's strategies right now. Sean.
Ultimately, he's saying that something needs to be done to change tariffs. Now, you can see here behind me, they're still cleaning up after nearly a dozen economic leaders joined the former vice president for a roundtable discussion on the impact of tariffs. Simply put, they're all in agreement that these broad-based tariffs will fall ultimately on the consumer. Pence tells me he's not against tariffs per se. It's something they used as leverage during the first Trump administration, but he feels it's something only hurting Americans right now.
We've got to stand, as our administration did, firm with China until they come to the table, open their markets, end intellectual property theft that's been characteristic of the last 25 years. But beyond that, we ought to be getting with our trading partners in this hemisphere and around the world in free nations and using the threat of tariffs to open their markets. We open our markets, and America, as the most prosperous nation on earth, will benefit.
And Pence told me directly afterwards that he actually was putting his politics aside and wishing Joe Biden well after his recent cancer diagnosis. He says that he lost a sister-in-law to colon cancer, so he and his wife are both sending their prayers to the former president. In Raleigh, Sean Gallagher, WRAL News.
Shipwrecked. 2 people are dead, several others hurt after a Mexican vessel crashes into the Brooklyn Bridge. What emergency officials say caused the catastrophe. Plus, a rare plane finds a new home. How many of them are left in the world?
The waves crashing there, and yes, a beautiful beach day. Carolina Beach, there it is. Live as you watch WRAL News, available on Spectrum and the WRAL app on your TV or streaming device.
The Mexican Navy has confirmed that 2 people so far have died, with nearly a dozen in critical condition after a ship crashed into the Brooklyn Bridge. Observers at the scene saw the ship coming toward them and knew the 160-foot mast was clearly too tall to clear the bridge. The New York Emergency Management Team says the ship lost power and steering. Then the currents carried the boat towards the bridge. The ship had a tugboat escort as required for all international ships. The NTSB is trying to determine why it did not redirect the ship sooner. A jet carrying 205 people flew for 10 minutes with no pilot in command. This happened in February of last year on a flight from Germany to Spain. The co-pilot of the Lufthansa flight fainted while the captain was in the restroom. The co-pilot received first aid from the crew and a doctor who was traveling as a passenger. The captain safely landed at an airport in Madrid. Turns out that the co-pilot had a pre-existing neurological condition that he did not know he had, and that had not been picked up during his medical examination.
Scary way to find out. A flying boat built during World War II is now resting comfortably at the Air and Space Museum in Tucson, Arizona. The historic Philippine Mars began its journey from Canada to the museum back in February. One of the things that makes this aircraft so special is that it's one of only 2 left in the world. There were only 7 originally built. The Philippine Mars is the only one in the United States. Dozens of homes were damaged or destroyed as tornadoes swept through parts of Colorado over the weekend. Tornadoes were seen in at least 3 counties there. Officials say at least 10 homes were damaged or lost in and around one town. At least 19 homes were damaged or destroyed near the town of Elizabeth. So far, no injuries have been reported.
In eastern North Carolina, a growing number of people know what it's like to live through a tornado. Just last week, 3 EF1s touched down in Edgecombe County in 12 hours. WRAL's Heidi Kirk heard from people who worry that this area has become a hotspot for storms in recent years.
Especially in this Tri-County area, people have become accustomed to cleaning up tornado damage just like this. It's left them living with fears that these storms are becoming more common here.
Alex Burgess lost everything when an EF3 tornado destroyed his automotive shop in Rocky Mount last September with him inside.
First thing went through my mind was, this is it.
It's one of 3 damaging EF3 tornadoes that touched down in Nash, Wilson, and Edgecombe counties during a 15-month period. Like many, Burgess worries this has become a new hotspot for storms.
Fear it every day. I mean, now that you know that it can happen and you can lose everything at a drop of a dime.
Tonight on WRAL News at 6, we take your questions to experts. Is this area North Carolina's Tornado Alley? Find out what's fueling these storms and why they could get stronger over time. That's tonight at 6 p.m. Heidi Kirk, WRAL News.
Scary thought if we're going to get more of them, right?
And we could be at risk for more of that starting tomorrow. Meteorologist Elizabeth Gardner in the WRAL Severe Weather Center with our storm chances that will increase tomorrow. Today looks great.
Today it feels great out here. It's getting a little bit hot out here at the moment, but it definitely looks beautiful everywhere we look. We have Fayetteville, we've got Raleigh at RDU, Apex, and Chapel Hill, courtesy of Top of the Hill Restaurant. The sky is especially pretty there at the airport and Chapel Hill right now. And it's beautiful here too. A few high thin clouds out here on the patio, and in the shade it feels good. Our humidity is low, but it is going to climb into the mid to upper 80s, and so it's, that's definitely on the warm side. So here's a look at our next weather maker. We're watching a front that's gradually going to start to lift northward as we get into tonight and tomorrow, and that's going to be a focus for some showers and thunderstorms for late Tuesday night into the day on Wednesday. And then once this whole thing moves on by, we're going to be dealing with some nice cool temperatures for Thursday and into the holiday weekend. This is a look at our severe threat. This is for tomorrow, and you can see the orange shaded area. That's a level 3 risk. That's a big risk for severe storms. We don't see that here very often, and we won't see that. You can see for Tuesday that green shaded area, so that's a level 1 risk for us. But for parts of the Mississippi Valley, really, so parts of Kentucky, Tennessee, Mississippi, Alabama are going to be in that level 3 risk. But for us, it's a level 1 risk on Tuesday. But honestly, you've probably seen, I showed you Futurecast just a little bit ago. I'll show it to you one more time. There's really not a lot of rain that shows up on the models for Tuesday, and every consecutive run of the models that comes in has less and less rain for Tuesday. So keep checking back. It may be that the Storm Prediction Center drops that level 1 risk for us for Tuesday. Wednesday, we have a level 1 risk, and it seems like we'd have a better chance for anything severe, which could be wind damage, possibly hail, even an isolated tornado. So this is tomorrow at lunchtime. Notice a few sprinkles that show up right there at lunchtime. None of that's going to be severe. It's just a quick little light rain. It's pretty dry for the evening commute tomorrow, and then in the evening, overnight, maybe a couple little cells pop up. But it really looks like now Wednesday morning with this line potentially of storms coming through. Earlier it looked like just some rain, but that's a pretty beefy looking line. Comes through around starting as early as 4 and ending by, say, 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning. So it would affect parts of the morning commute. And again, that's Wednesday. So Wednesday we got 50% chance down. We have to bump that up a little bit over the next day or two. And then we're mostly dry Thursday. Thursday, some of the models are starting to trend a little bit wetter. So stay tuned in case we have to add more rain to the forecast on Thursday. But then you look at this, our forecast rainfall, it doesn't look too exciting, only about 1/4 of an inch. This is a look at our Memorial Day weekend preview. Gosh, it's looking really nice. 74 on Friday, 75 Saturday, 78 Sunday, 77 on Monday. And our chances for rain are pretty minimal. A small chance on Sunday and again on Monday. We talked about this a little earlier, but don't want you to forget tonight at 6 o'clock, we have a story about all the tornadoes that have been popping up in the eastern part of our viewing area. Is it a new tornado alley? And then tomorrow we have the 2025 Atlantic Tropical Outlook that all of us here in the Weather Center created. So that's our forecast, sort of like we do the forecast for the winter. It's our tropical forecast coming up tomorrow. You can see how nice and pleasant it is through the holiday weekend. Looking forward to some of those 70s, y'all.
How about it? Elizabeth, thank you. Strong, fearless, and beautiful. More than 1,600 athletes competed in a life-changing event for women only. Some prove you're never too young or seasoned to get healthy.
As we wrap things up, here's a look at a few of the headlines we're following today. A Morrisville man accused of killing his wife, then claiming it was a suicide, has pleaded guilty to murder. This morning, Michael Matthews pleaded guilty to second-degree murder for the April 2023 shooting. Prosecutors say Matthews shot his wife, Navaruna Karmakar, then staged her death to make it look like it was a suicide, even writing a suicide note. Matthews was sentenced to a minimum of 13 years in prison.
Governor Josh Stein is in western North Carolina asking for nearly $1 billion more for Hurricane Helene relief. The governor's request comes as state lawmakers in Raleigh are in the middle of negotiating a new budget. The state has already spent $1.6 billion on Helene aid. He says the federal government is spending too little and getting it to North Carolina too slowly.
Former Vice President Mike Pence made a stop in Raleigh today, talking about the impacts of Trump's tariffs. Nearly a dozen economic leaders in the state joined Pence for a roundtable discussion. The former vice president says something needs to be done because right now tariffs are only hurting Americans. What else? Pence said in a one-on-one interview with WRAL during our evening news starting at 4.
Just a little earlier this noon, we asked you, have tariffs impacted your travel and entertainment plans? And you can see we don't have a lot of folks weighing in just yet. So we'll bring that to you a little later.
You could say behind every great woman is another great woman. That was the case at this year's Gold Nugget Triathlon in Anchorage, Alaska. The all-woman event attracted competitors from 30 different cities in Alaska, 17 U.S. states, and Canada. Each competitor began with a 400-yard swim, followed by a 12.1-mile bike ride, and finished off by running or walking 3.25 miles. The youngest competitor was 9 years old. The oldest was 88. And get this, it was her 32nd time competing in that triathlon.
Pets of the day come to us from the Adolescent and Animal Rescue Resource Fund. Now, Stitch and Carmel are adorable, playful, and a bit naughty sometimes. They're baby goats, after all. They're fixed, absolutely love people. They are curious. They'll make you laugh. They must have some pretty safe fencing there as well. Call AARF at the number on your screen to learn more about it.
Oh, that video is great.
NBC News Daily is up next on WRAL.
You can get breaking news updates anytime with our WRAL News app. Go out and enjoy this beautiful weather.
Keep watching WRAL News over the air Channel 34 and Spectrum Channel 1257.